little bit about myself. As Marco had so kindly explained my background, I am a consultant. I also teach at Seneca College, but prior to that, I've had a number of years of experience in the retail, the commercial, as well as the B2B side of marketing. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, I bring a business perspective to nonprofit. Here are the 5 good ideas that I like to propose to you, and the requisite cat picture is there, because if you're in social media, you know you have to have cat pictures. So the first good idea I'd like to propose is to not be afraid of opening up. And what I mean by opening up is right now in organizations, whether it's social, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, there's sort of a fear about, should we let people use social media at work? You know, what if they say something wrong? What if they share something that they shouldn't share? We can't let them do that. Well, the reality is that these same individuals that are sitting on their computer or on their smartphone sharing information, and you're afraid that something might get out, are also going to social events like this one here, or networking events. And the same thing could happen. You could turn to the person sitting next to you and share something that you shouldn't share. So social is no different from what I say real world or real life conversations, or person-to-person conversations. So I would suggest not to be afraid of opening up within the workspace. The other thing is, where do you get the most information about your organization? It's not through a company newsletter. It's not through those boring monthly update meetings that senior management has. It's typically at the water cooler, the break room, or the hallway, right? And that's where the real networking happens, or the informal networking, if you will. So with social media, what you're doing is you're bringing that conversation sort of inside. Now, different organizations can use social media. Different departments can also benefit from social media. So it's not something that you do at a corporate level. You can also do sort of at an internal level. What you'll find is that the informal network that you establish, whether it's outside or inside, is kind of like the glue that keeps people together, it keeps people connected. And the majority of the so-called younger individuals, they're already on social media. They're already friending or following or connected with people in your organization. So if I'm working at, and I'll just say United Way as an example, I will be connected with my friends at the United Way, my colleagues at the United Way. So I already have that informal network set up. Given that it's already set up, and given that we know that social media connects everyone, why not bring it inside? Now, it may be hard to convince senior management or yourself that, okay, maybe should I tweet our latest payroll update? Or should I put a Facebook status that, we just had a meeting and this is our great initiative that we're working on? Some things might be, are internal. You don't really want to share them in public. But that value of that social network, you can open it up inside of your organization by bringing it in. So you can use the same, let's say, Facebook type of social network and have people internally connecting with each other the same way that they already connect, the way they're already familiar with connecting out in the social sphere. So what you want is a two-way dialogue. And if you look at the opportunities from an organization standpoint, you have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. on the outside. Yes, you can bring them in, but that doesn't solve your problem about the fear of something getting out. In that fear, by not opening up, you're limiting your staff from communicating and collaborating. So there's something called enterprise social networking tools, and these are some examples here. So Google Enterprise, Yammer, Socialcast, or Salesforce Chatter. These will allow you to have similar type of connectivity, similar type of collaboration that we have outside within your organization, and it's locked down. You don't have to worry about stuff getting out. But it does foster the same type of creativity, the same type of collaboration, the same type of connections that social media does on the outside. The second idea I'd like to propose is that we, as nonprofits, should think like a for-profit. Now, you may be going, oh no, we can't do that. Nonprofit is social good, it's for the people, it's not this money thing. Well, I'm not going to argue about that, but I think by the end of our conversation, hopefully you agree that if you do think like a for-profit, you're not really giving away your mandate or your core or your essence. So what you're doing is you're leveraging what's out there to benefit your organization. So think about for-profits. What do? They use Twitter for things like market research, for providing customer service. They save money by recruiting via LinkedIn. They would use Facebook and have user-generated posts or how-to videos, let's say, on YouTube. So what they're doing is they're actually getting their community to create, well, to make tangible what is intangible by using social media. Now, you think we could do the same thing with nonprofits? Right? I mean, so it's not really thinking about, you know, the bottom line. I mean, in business, yes, it's about profit and it's about your return on investment. But what if we use the same model for nonprofits? And from a profit and an ROI standpoint, let's look at the profit in terms of how you can benefit from utilizing these tools. Let me give you some examples. Walmart has this new initiative called, well, relatively new initiative called the Green Room, and it's about their sustainability. And they have a web page, they have a blog, they use Twitter, they use Facebook. They also use Pinterest, and they have a contest called Pin to Win. And what they're trying to do is trying to get users to say, this is what inspires me to be green. But really what they're doing is they're connecting with their consumers, their audience, and in your case, we can call them our stakeholders, or our constituents, or our clients. This is their Pinterest board. Now, could you do the same thing at an agency? Right? You could get people to join, you can get them to join and create fundraising ideas, pinning fundraising ideas on a board, or posting something on Twitter about an effective way to, let's say, execute a research program. So from a nonprofit standpoint, what are you trying to do? You're trying to get greater bang for your donor buck. So I am bringing business into this. But you are taking funding and you're utilizing funding in a way that benefits the organization, which is similar to what for-profits are doing. They're taking, you know, investor funding or self-funded activities, and they're trying to create a profit and a return on their investment. So let's think about giving our volunteers a return on their investment of time and of effort using these type of tools. Here's an example of a nonprofit that's doing a great job thinking like a for-profit. So other half is a Chinese stem cell initiative. It's a nonprofit organization, and what they want to do is increase the number of stem cell donors of Chinese origin, and they want them to register on the stem cell registry. Now, as it stands, a person of Chinese origin has about a 10% chance of finding a compatible donor. Unfortunately, most of the individuals are dying. Now, other half uses traditional media to reach out, but they must raise awareness quickly, and they must get people to act now in order to do something about this situation. So what are they doing? They have on a Facebook page here, and they're using Twitter, they're using YouTube, and by integrating that with their marketing communication, they've been able to increase the number of
Sit what?
Yes. Well, what I was saying was that one half has made the intangible act of swabbing your cheek and registering into something that's tangible by using social media. Nonprofits can also research how for-profits are using social media, and they can adopt or adapt the best practices and use them in a nonprofit organization for nonprofit purposes. Another good idea I'd like to propose is to offer value to stakeholders. Now, I'm sure you're already offering value to stakeholders. So you're saying, why am I telling you to offer value? Well, what I mean here is offering value to stakeholders through social media. The problem is social media is huge. How many of you, I guess, imagine most of you are using Facebook, Twitter? No? Not if you can help it. Okay. Pinterest, LinkedIn, right? I mean, there's a lot of social media platforms out there, and a lot of us are using it, and we're sharing. But you remember when there was only Facebook or Twitter? I remember I'd see something interesting, and I'd kind of copy it and email it to myself, or I'd flag it so I can read it later. And there's always someone that posts funny jokes, and that person's the funny joke person. Someone has really good insights about business, and so I'd follow them. It was really easy to manage, but then something happened. Something big happened. 955 million Facebook users and 170 million tweets or Twitter users now started doing the same thing that we were doing, sharing like crazy. And unfortunately, as a result of that, we were getting inundated, or I found I was getting inundated with the volume of information coming. And if you wanted to keep up, you could spend all day on social media, and sometimes I do. Kind of makes some people unhappy, but that's just kind of what happens. And it's not a really good thing to do. And when you're talking about stakeholders, if you're doing the same thing and spewing out volumes and volumes of information, your stakeholders go, what's going on here? Where is the value? I look to you for those nuggets of knowledge, and I'm getting everything, including cat pictures, which I don't have anything against cats, by the way, but it's just such a popular thing. I just can't believe it. So the question here is, how do you stay on top, given the volume of information that's coming down at you? Well, one of the ways that you can do it is you can use what's called a content aggregator. Tools such as Feedly, for example. And what they do is they allow you to get content, let's say news or feeds, and collect them all into one place that's nice and convenient. And you can refer to that at your leisure. So here's a page, for example. This is my page from this morning. And as you can see, it has let's say the latest information. Now, I can take a look at that information and say, wow, you know what? I found this one interesting. I'm going to share it. And so this tool allows you to share it with your Google+, your Twitter, or your Facebook accounts, or even email if you wanted to. But the benefit here is that you are collecting information, you are then selectively sharing to your stakeholders. So you are offering that value. Some other examples are Pulse and Flipboard. And what you want to look for with this type of management tool, which is called content aggregator, is you want a tool that can be used on a PC, on a Mac, on an Android or iDevice. I'm not sure about the BlackBerry. I mean, not a lot of folks are supporting the BlackBerry at this point. So unfortunately, you're limited to those devices. But if you try to pick something that works on all devices, then everyone in your organization can utilize the tool. If you pick something that's very, very limited, then you won't get the same level of adoption or engagement that you would like. Another idea that I'd like to share is what's happening out in the industry, or what are the trends? And metaphorically speaking, I would say look out the window, because that's where you see the trends that are happening. So the first trend that I see is crowdsourcing. Anyone heard of crowdsourcing? So what's crowdsourcing to you?
It's a way of bringing in other people to your idea or project.
Good. A way of bringing other people to your project or your idea. One aspect of crowdsourcing is called crowdfunding. And does anyone remember Karen Klein, the bus driver from New Jersey, I think it was, New York? The horrible situation where she was bullied by some students on the school bus. A Canadian actually felt bad about this and wanted to do something for her. And what he did was he went onto a crowdfunding site and he said, listen, I want to raise $5,000 and I want to give this poor lady a vacation, a break, something for what she went through. You know how much they raised? It was $700,000. And what was the average contribution? $21. So when you think about crowdfunding, you're getting a large amount of people to give you a small amount of money, as opposed to going to a few individuals and saying, can you give me $100,000? You're now going to 100,000 people and saying, can you give me $1? Relatively easy to do that. Now, is this something that we can do as a nonprofit? What do you think? Yeah. Right. So this is a good tool in terms of what we as nonprofits can utilize. Another thing that I'm seeing is this idea of going naked. Anybody do this? No? Not in public. Okay. Well, Obama does this. He went onto Reddit and he said, ask me anything. So he went out there, and there was no holds barred. You can ask whatever you want, and he was willing to answer. This is going naked. McDonald's Canada has a campaign now which is really effective, where they're saying, ask us anything about McDonald's. And people are saying, are your fries really made out of potatoes? Or how come your burger looks so good? Where's the E. coli? All right, so you have organizations that are already utilizing this idea of transparency, this idea of being naked, if you will. Now, we can do the same thing. We can interact. We can share our stories. We can respond to questions in an open and honest manner. And what you want to do as a nonprofit is you want to show that you're a human being, not a corporate entity or a nonprofit entity, but you're actually just like the folks that you're trying to connect with, whether they're clients or donors. Now, nonprofits are an interesting group. In my experience, nonprofits often get questions like, what do you do? What do you do with the money? How do you manage that money? And the response is typically a corporate, controlled, scripted response saying, well, XYZ, nonprofit, this is what we do. And it's something that doesn't share a whole lot because then it can get you in trouble. Does that sound familiar? Right? And that is great. However, who are we dealing with now? We are dealing with social donors, social volunteers, people that have expectations of being naked, like Obama or McDonald's. And so they're expecting you as an organization to do the same thing, to be open, to be transparent, to share information, not scripted, not controlled, but just free-flowing. If I ask you a question, answer. And that's something that is going to be demanded more and more because of things like what Obama and what McDonald's Canada, as an example, have done. Anyone play tag? Yeah? Okay, we're now doing this on social. Hashtag 5GI. All right, that's tagging. And why are we doing this? Well, as more and more people are sharing that 955 million Facebook users and 170 million Twitter users, there is a ton of stuff that's going out there. Now, how do you keep track of all this? By using hashtags or tagging, what you're doing is you're taking words that are important words or words that are indicative of the content that you can expect. And by doing so, by utilizing these tags, whether it's on Instagram, whether it's on Pinterest, or whether it's on Twitter, you're allowing people that follow you or that are engaged with you to find information that's relevant to them. Amongst all the whole stream and barrage of communication that's going out there, you're allowing them to zero in on a particular topic, a particular keyword, or a particular, let's say, an organization even. So hashtag 5GI, for example, will allow anyone outside to follow the Twitter conversation without having to read, let's say, all of the other tweets that you may be doing while you're at the session. Another trend is visual marketing. And I talked about Instagram. Instagram is taking traffic away from Facebook. And that's probably one of the reasons why Facebook bought them, is they realized that people are migrating away from Facebook and starting to use Instagram a lot more, doing the tagging and things. And Pinterest came out of nowhere. Anyone use Pinterest? And do you use it for your organization or personally? Both. Both? Anyone use it only for their organization? So it's personal and then organization. That makes a lot of sense. With Pinterest, you had something 2 years ago that didn't exist that now became one of the largest drivers of traffic to sites. So if you're not on Pinterest, I think from a visual marketing standpoint, this is one of the directions that people are heading, and a nonprofit should consider that as part of their marketing. Accenture is using Pinterest to really show that they're interested in promoting women, in cultivating a company where women can come in the organization, progress, and be promoted. Now, this is different from, let's say, Romney with his binder full of women idea. Okay? What we're talking about here is an organization that says, hey, we care about women, and we're pinning pictures that are related to articles about women and about our values and what are we doing to help women at Accenture. Individuals can follow these pins, or this organization, and they can see a variety of different communications that Accenture is doing related to that topic. Again, I ask, can we do this as nonprofits? Now, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, a video is worth like, what, 1,000,000? Something like that? So you have companies like Vidly, like SocialCam, And they're kind of like the Pinterest for video, all right? So these are big companies. So Video has about 30 million followers or users, and SocialCam has about 56 million. So they're large groups or gathering of individuals using these apps. And it's becoming like an Instagram, but for video. And the Canadian Cancer Society is also smart about utilizing the tools that are out there. They have a YouTube page, but they're not just saying, here's our page, give us money. It's not a fundraising activity. It's a way for them to engage with prospective donors and volunteers. Canadians are watching about 271 videos a month. That's a lot of videos. I don't know when and how they're doing it, but it's happening. So hopefully no one's watching a video now. Right? That would be bad. Mobile marketing is another trend. All you on your phones, anyone have an iPad or a tablet here? Okay. So these tools are becoming, and you're actually working on yours while you're seeing this, which is excellent, because this is what people are doing. 54% of the wireless Canadians have a smartphone, and they spend about 2.5 hours per day on their phone. That sounds bizarre. I mean, do you guys do that? 2.5 hours, roughly? Yeah, unbelievable. And there's only 24 hours in a day, so think about that. Almost 10% of your time is spent on your phone. 69% of smartphone users have apps that access social media. So now, the folks that you're trying to connect with, they're already on a phone for the most part. Almost 70% of them are on a phone that can connect with social media. So now, another reason to use social media. 62% are using their phones to take pictures. So if any of you have cameras and you're on Twitter, take a picture, tweet it, share the love. I was looking at the gentleman over here typing on his iPad, and it reminded me that when you're watching television or you're on your computer, you also have your iPad or your phone next to you as well. And I was surprised when someone told me that this is what's happening. I couldn't believe it. And then I realized I was doing the same thing. I'd be watching the debate, or I'd be watching the news or something, and I have my iPad there, and I'll be like reading sort of secondary conversation. So there's this idea now, it's called the second screen. So now when you're marketing, you've got your television or whatever form of communication, but people now are using a second screen to connect with you or to connect with your message or your brand. So from a nonprofit standpoint, you have to keep this in mind. People are on mobile, they're using mobile devices like tablets or like smartphones, and they're utilizing them in a different way than what we would expect. And this is increasing. More and more, the prices coming down, different models and different functionalities in there, more and more folks are using more mobile over their computer. I now hardly open up my desktop. I would say maybe an hour every other day, let's say. The majority of my work is done through a tablet or through a phone. And I'm an old guy, so you can imagine what younger folks are doing in terms of connecting. This is really important for us as nonprofits, because when you have your messages, what vehicles are you choosing for your message? If you have a website, is it optimized for mobile? Or do I go on your website and I have to kind of go like this and screen through several times, and I can't really find what it is that I'm looking for? So this is something that you want to keep in mind. And finally, in terms of a trend, we have what's called topic pages. So remember before I talked about the barrage of information coming at you? All that is chronological, and you might say, all right, well, there was a central topic or a theme, but I've missed that theme. So what the trend is now is to have what's called topic pages or theme pages. And an example of that would be Pinterest, where you have boards, and each board is on a topic. It's not a chronological board, it's just a board related to a particular idea. So as a nonprofit, you can do the same thing. You can have a board related to, let's say, education, or a board related to outreach. There's a variety of themes that you can come up with that in your own organization that you can now share with others. Instead of managing the big barrage coming in, you organize it so that the person, when they come to your page, they can see that particular topic or theme. Now what I'm showing up here is a service that is about to launch. It's called Medium. And it does a similar thing where it organizes things by topic. This is going to be something that in the future will be more valued than the chronological tweets or Facebook status updates, because people are having a hard time keeping track of things. And we all know that all of us are not as attentive as maybe we were 20, 30 years ago, for those of us that are that old. So there's this idea of, we would call them the MTV generation, where you get things really quickly and you make decisions really quickly and things change very quickly. Well, in that type of situation, that type of environment, when you have a nonprofit message and people are expecting this, you cannot have a nice steady drip of communication going a little bit at a time. It has to be nicely organized, and topics or themes are one of the ways that you can do that. The final strategy, or the final idea I'd like to share, is that you should have a strategy before dipping your toe in the water. So when you talk about social media, what are the challenges of using social media? I see three main challenges. The first challenge I see is that once you're out there, there is no going back. You start tweeting, you start doing a Facebook post or something, and you cannot start the conversation and leave midstream. Can you imagine if I was speaking with you right now, and then in midstream in the conversation, I just disappeared? You know, you'd be thinking, what happened? You were talking to me, and all of a sudden you're gone. Well, the same thing happens with social media. You engage with someone, and you cannot just create the Facebook page or the Twitter account, talk about your event, talk about a particular fundraising activity that you have, and then disappear until the next time you have a fundraising idea or an opportunity. Your volunteers that are social savvy wouldn't really like that. Average consumers aren't accustomed to that. So what we've done, we've opened up this line of communication, and we cannot close it whenever we want. We have to always be there. Do you remember that song from the Eagles, Hotel California? What is that? How does it go? Like you can check out anytime, but you can't. Yeah, you can check out anytime, you can never leave. All right, thank you. So this is social media. Once you get in, you cannot leave. So be really careful about deciding that you want to go into social media. And I'll give you an example of this. I'm a Win Mobile customer, not that I'm advertising. And Tony Lacavera, the president, I believe, has a Twitter account. And his Twitter account is like one of the worst accounts I've ever seen. It basically tweets out, hey, we got this promotion, we're doing this, which is self-promoting for the company. And then someone says something nice, says, hey, thank you for that. And that's it. There's no other engagement going on. And it's not ongoing, it's sort of sporadic. So what happens to me as a social person, social media user, when I go to his Twitter feed, I look and I say, okay, what kind of value am I getting by connecting with you? Zero. Which is okay, because who cares? I'm just one person, right? Think about it from the perspective of the organization, a nonprofit or a company like Wind. You set up an account, people are expecting you to communicate, people are expecting you to interact, and you don't. What would happen? What would you do in that situation? You probably abandon that. You would stop following. If it was a nonprofit, you'd say, okay, these people don't really know what they're doing. I don't have trust. And social is all about trust, as well as nonprofit. And if you lose that trust, you're going to have a hard time regaining that. The second problem with social, or the second challenge with social, is that you don't control the conversation anymore. My example with Tony Lacavera is a perfect example of that, where I'm talking about it. He has no control over what I'm saying, because it's in a social sphere. Timothy's Coffees of the World had the same situation. Where they had a promotion. They offered 4 free boxes, not individual K-Cups, but 4 boxes of 24-count perfectly pumpkin K-Cups. About $72 worth of product. And you remember I was talking about content aggregators. They kind of take information and they kind of organize it. Well, there's also content aggregators that look at things like contests, and they pull in all the deals that are out there. And then they shoot those deals out to people that are interested. They say, hey, guess what? Timothy's has this amazing deal. You get $72 worth of coffee for free. And everyone goes, wow, that is so cool. And so in 3 days, they ran out of inventory. They ran out of product. Okay? So this is something that's on social. They have a Facebook page, and they ran out of product. So of course, the Facebook users got really upset. And they shared how upset they were in a public forum. And if you look here, they have about 9,000 fans, I think. So you had a nice positive message. We're going to give you nice value, $70 worth of product. Oops, we're on social media. This thing went like crazy, like wildfire. It went viral. Now we have no product, and we don't have a solution for you, and you're upset. So what do? Well, they actually did a good thing. They fessed up. They said they're sorry, and they said they didn't realize that this is what would happen. So they were being open and they were being transparent. They were being naked in this case, right? And as a result of that, that sort of negativity didn't continue. People eventually forgot about the fact that they made this mistake, because really it was a mistake. I don't think they got up in the morning and said, hey, let's do this really big promotion, get everyone really excited, and we're not going to deliver. Right? I don't think they did that. But they could have been crucified if they didn't communicate, if they didn't fess up, if they weren't open. And fortunately, they didn't do that, and they continue to enjoy the patronage of their fans. Take a look at this quote from Clay Shirky. This is what we're seeing, and I'll read it. Information overload is not the problem. You want all the information. It's filter failure, and really, that comes down to the third sort of challenge that I see with social media, is that it can be overwhelming. There is so much activity. You are expected to be on 24/7. There was no, I'm finished at 5 and that's it, and it's the weekend and I'll respond on Monday. No, no, no. People are actually connecting with you on the weekend. They want you to respond on the weekend. You are expected to be approachable. You're expected to respond, to engage all the time. That is incredibly overwhelming. And it's hard to keep track of, what did you say? Who said it? Who responded? What was the situation? What was the background? What channel did they use? What platform did they use to communicate with you? It's hard to keep track of all that stuff. So the solution for this is called a social media management dashboard. And I'm showing you an example of Hootsuite. Hootsuite is a Canadian company, and they provide this service for free if you have a basic one account. If you have multiple accounts, it's about $10 a month. And then, of course, there's other services like Hootsuite, TweetDeck is an example, and many other more sort of corporate social media dashboards that could run you tens of thousands of dollars a month. So there's a wide range. And I would suggest that you scale accordingly in terms of your nonprofit and how you want to manage it. But let me talk about the benefits of a social media dashboard in the first place. You have multiple accounts, I would imagine, or you will have multiple accounts after this conversation, I hope. And the question is, it's overwhelming. How do you manage all these accounts? Well, with a dashboard, what you can do is you can connect all of your accounts into one dashboard. And when I use the word dashboard, everyone understand what I'm saying? When you're driving, you have a dashboard that tells you how fast you're going, how much gas you have left, whether your engine light is coming on or something. So those are indicators of what's happening in your vehicle. So social media dashboard is the same thing. It's indicators of what's happening in your social media vehicle, if you will. So you're getting a read on who's commenting on Facebook, who's commenting on Twitter, etc. And I'm not sure if you can see this, but I have a feed for Maytree, and I have one for the hashtag 5GI. So this morning, I was able to read through and see what the conversation was. This is a lot quicker for me to do than having to individually go through all the folks that I follow. And I follow about 4,000 or 5,000 people. So for me to manage that, and to manage the communication back to me, if 5,000 people started talking to me all at once, it'd be hard for me to understand. But with a social media tool, what I can do is I can say, all right, you're talking, which is great. As soon as you say my name, I want to hear about it. So I've got a feed that whenever you say my name, I can read about it. So then I can manage my brand, if you will. If somebody's asking a question, if I was a nonprofit and if someone's asking a question, I now know out of all the barrage of tweets that are coming out there, or the Facebook status updates or whatever, I know someone has asked me something and it hasn't disappeared. So really what I'm able to say is, listen, you're important to me. When you reach out, I'm here for you. I want you to connect. I want you to ask me something. I want to help. Or if you have something that you have to share, I'm interested in hearing it. I want to know what's going on in your life. And I could not manage that, and we could not manage this unless we had something like a dashboard to help us with. So I talked about 3 challenges with social media. And I haven't really given you many solutions other than the dashboard, right? So in the time that I have allotted, I can't sort of go through a whole plan. But what I can tell you is know who your target is. Who are you trying to connect with? You can't say everybody, because that's not true. There's no way you're trying to connect to every single person in the world. So from a nonprofit perspective, who are you trying to reach? Who is your target? That's the first thing you want to do. The second thing you want to do is you want to find out where they play. Are they playing on Facebook? Is it on Pinterest? Is it on Yelp? Is it on Quora? What social media platform is your target playing? That is where you should play. All right, so that will guide you in terms of your social media efforts. The third thing you want to do is you want to have a plan on how you will engage with them over time. I talked before about the fact that you cannot create an account, tweet something, or do a status update, or post something about your event and then disappear, only to come back a couple months later when it's important again. So to avoid that situation, you have to have a communication plan. And this is not unique to marketing. You probably have one anyways. All you want to do now is extend it to social media. There's 52 weeks in a year, 24 hours in a day. What am I going to communicate? When am I going to communicate that? Where am I going to communicate that? How often am I going to communicate? You have to have this level of discipline in order to satisfy your stakeholders. They are looking to engage with you. That's why they're on social media. The folks that are on social media don't go in once a week and say, hey, I wonder what's going on. They don't do that. These are the same folks that are using their phone for 2.5 hours. How many times have you guys checked your status, your Facebook updates or Twitter?
15 times.
15 times already. All right, excellent. I love to hear that. So this is the reality. And whether you're doing it or not, the folks outside, the ones that are your prospective volunteers, the ones that are your donors, the ones that are your supporters, they are doing this. And so you need to have a plan on how are you going to maintain that connection, that contact, that connectivity with them. Now, what I've talked about here is no different from traditional marketing. The only point of difference I can make is that what we're doing is faster, much, much, much more faster than what you do with traditional. And the expectation is that you respond. So with traditional, it's a one-way conversation. You put up a billboard, you put up a bus shelter ad, you put up a flyer, you have a television commercial, radio commercial. That's all one way. You throw it out there and whoever sees it, sees it. With social media, it's totally different. You do a post, people read it. They are now expecting, if they respond, they are now expecting you to acknowledge that and respond back to their question or query or comment. That is the main difference between traditional marketing and social. So here are the 5 ideas that I had shared. And what I'd like to do now is I'd like for you to look at these ideas and think within your organization, what can you adopt in terms of the ideas if you can? And how would you go about doing that within your organization? What challenges do you think you'll have? And have the folks that are sitting at the table with you help you with how can we solve or resolve those issues.